Kirby Smart meeting with the media yesterday, and the first question he was asked was about LSU's offense.
Yeah, they're physical. Their backs run with a purpose. When you watch their backs, they're explosive through the hole. They have elite toughness. They seek contact. Each one of those guys runs with a really strong purpose. I mean, I've seen some really elite effort plays out of those guys, running to cover down. I mean, when Jaden pulls it, you see backs going out there and blocking for him down the field.
Georgia, as usual, is at the top of the league in rush defense. The difference, I would tell you, this year is that there's nobody close to them. Alabama usually has a run defense that is comparable to Georgia's. Georgia is giving up 46 yards less per game than Alabama is. Now, this is not as good of an Alabama defense as they usually have, obviously. Point being that Georgia lost 800 people to the NFL draft, and against the run, they are every bit as good as they usually are. When you have that kind of – actually, Tennessee's between Georgia and Alabama, so you're still talking about a 32-yard difference between first and second place. It's a massive difference. He's complimentary of the LSU backs. And let's be real honest, what he's complimenting them on is to – yes, run the football right ahead. This is like what Nick Saban used to basically taunt Les Miles with. You gonna run the football right at us? Go right ahead, man. We got 16 people waiting for you. LSU running the football against Georgia straight ahead is not something that they're going to be able to make a living doing on Saturday. Getting Josh Williams back would be huge. What kind of shape is he going to be in? Is he going to be able to play at all? I don't know. But you're not going to this has got to be your change-up pitch. You can't live on this against Georgia. At least nobody has to this point. It doesn't mean that Jaden Daniels can't get loose. And I think that's probably, again, much like a lot of those Alabama defenses, what gives them problems. Well, a quarterback that runs can do that. Even that's not a guarantee against Georgia. Hendon Hooker, who had been a pretty good runner when he needed to be, they bottled him up. Anthony Richardson, who is a fantastic runner when he decides to tuck it and go. Georgia won both of those games really, really easily, and neither Richardson nor Hooker got to a point where, there were some numbers, but neither one of those teams seriously challenged Georgia in those games. Smart also talked about LSU's improvement throughout the year.
Yeah, they've gotten better throughout from the start of the season until now. I know their quarterback has gotten better. They do a tremendous job growing young players. I think everybody across the SEC there's youth everywhere. Well, by this time of year, they're no longer young. They have two tackles they're no longer freshmen. They've played in really big games. They blocked the best of the best in our league. They're not really freshmen anymore. So LSU has gotten better consistently, and that's what you're always trying to do to win an SEC championship is ascend and get better as you go along. And sometimes that's easier said than done, and I feel like the LSU's done that.
You have to really look hard to find the places that Georgia has struggled at all. Where you go back to the Missouri game. What did Missouri do to stay in that game? And you look at it and it's like, man, how did Missouri stay in that game? Because they were outgained on the ground by 67 yards. They were outpassed in the game by 30 yards, and Stetson Bennett didn't throw an interception. Well, if you got outgained by that much and Georgia didn't throw an interception, where were the where's the how do you fill in that gap? How did they get that close? Georgia fumbled twice. Okay. That's almost what you had to count on. Missouri played pretty good defense. It's not like Georgia went up and down the field, but they guaranteed them a shot in the fourth quarter by turning them back in the red zone. And for LSU, red zone defense, Georgia's going to get their yards. And Stetson Bennett is I've said this before, he's a much better athlete than he's given credit for. A lot of their offense is ignited when he moves around. Perkins here. is what I'm looking for. Harold Perkins cannot spin this game outside the hash. Okay, I don't care if they got to teach him how to play nose tackle. They got to get him closer to the football. We said this at the very beginning of the season, the very beginning of when Perkins was making his move, which was right around the Tennessee game. It's like, well, schematically they took him out, took him off the field at that point. No, this is your job to figure out how to get him on the field. So they got that done. And then by the time you got to the Arkansas game, they were scheming you with these 3-by-1 sets to get Perkins out on the outside of the hash. And it happened again on Saturday. Did you notice Perkins very much on Saturday? No. Was he in the game? Most of the time, he's in coverage a lot. Harold Perkins can't be in coverage most of the day on Saturday if LSU is going to have a chance here. You got to let Harold Perkins do what Harold Perkins does, which is disrupt the hell out of the offense. And that means draw a beat on Stetson Bennett. How many times? Go watch a Georgia highlight film. Just Google it. 5 minutes of Georgia highlights and tell me how many times Stetson Bennett drops back in the pocket, clean pocket, 5-step drop, throw the ball down the field. Happens sometimes. Or Georgia just turns around and hands the ball to McIntosh or Milton or whoever, and they just run the football down the field. Happens some. Then go watch how many plays happen when Bennett starts moving. He's good. Put 40 on him. And since we're talking about Stetson Bennett, Kirby Smart talked about Stetson Bennett.
No, I think he's played well. I think he's done what we've asked him to do. I think he continues to do that. Then we'll be successful because what we've asked him to do, he's done. He has played some formidable, good opponents, and he's played really well against those teams. He's had a couple decisions I think he would like to have back, but he's also made some really, really spectacular plays. So sometimes when you put a lot on a player, you may get some of that. You may get a mistake. You may get something he wishes he had back, but he also has some really incredible plays.
He looks like an accountant. He probably will not spend a minute on an NFL field in the regular season in his life, but Stetson Bennett is way better than he is given credit for. I mean, look back to 368 yards in the game against Oregon, 316 yards in the game against Florida, in the game against Auburn. He threw for 200 and ran for another 75 and a touchdown. Now, the last 2 weeks, it's been a lot different. Kentucky held Georgia to 116 yards through the air, and Georgia Tech held them to 140 yards through the air. I suspect Matt House will be looking a lot at those films. Finally, B.J. Ojulari. He was getting Perkins onto the field at the beginning was a problem because he was playing the same position in a lot of these sets as B.J. Ojulari, and they don't want to take Ojulari off the field either. They've gotten that fixed, but again, at sometimes the cost of Perkins playing a little bit further away from the ball, they would like him to do that. Ojulari talked about number 40.
Very disappointing loss this past Saturday.
Nope.
Harold's been always a special player, and just seeing him show great flashes in practice of his speed and capability off the edge. So just being able to see him in SEC games dominating, it's really no surprise. Just the stuff that he's able to do and how he can help our defense and how detrimental he's been to the defensive play.
I'd be tempted to do on the very first play of the game. I'd walk out with, whatever your defensive set is, and as soon as Georgia got either, set or under center or whatever they're going to do, I think I'd go put Perkins right in the A-gap. Just stand right there and blitz. I'm coming. And for the rest of the day, I got that club in my bag. At any point, I can put 40 right in the middle of the field, try to shoot this A-gap, and put Bennett on his behind. Is that going to work? I don't know. They're not the first person to think of that. I'm not the first person to think of that. But I certainly would let Stetson Bennett know that Harold Perkins was there. I don't think I'd leave Stetson Bennett to think, hey, can I beat Harold Perkins in pass coverage? I think I'd figure out a way to have him as a part of the pass rush package. Can we say that? Listen, LSU's got to do something a little bit extraordinary to win this game. This ain't a straight-up game. LSU plays straight up the way they play. Georgia plays straight up the way they play. Georgia's going to win the game. They're better. Got to do something a little bit unorthodox. I'm not saying you got to fake 9 kicks, okay? I'm not saying you got to go for it on 4th and 1 from your own 12-yard line with 9 minutes to go in the first quarter, but you do have to throw some wrinkles at them. You do have to be a little bit better than you've been.